What's going on YouTube? Someone commented on one of my videos recently and asked for a guide on siege weapons. So we're going to be going into that real quick. This will be a pretty quick video. But yeah, if you are having trouble playing against siege or using your own siege effectively, this video will be helpful for you. So the first kind of siege that you'll encounter, like the earliest kind of siege you'll encounter, is the ram. And can actually be made by infantry units on the ground. After you research the siege engineering upgrade, which is right here in the blacksmith, I've already researched it. So you don't really want to go for rams in the feudal age unless you feel like you're really far ahead and you can push and end the game right now. So situations in which you would build rams in the feudal age is like you've scouted your opponent's army and it's tiny. You scouted that they're trying to go, straight to castle age, but you've already got your army parked in front of their base and they don't have an army. And like the thing is, like, you don't really need the siege though. If you have a bunch of army and your opponent doesn't have army, then you can just attack their gold, their food, whatever resources they're gathering out on the map, woodline, and just kill villagers and get an advantage there. And try to push them off of the resources. And that's the best thing you can be doing with your army. And that is much, much more important than siege, guys. I want to stress that. A lot of people, are, especially in lower leagues, they're building army in their base and they're not using it. So it's way more important to be using your army to gain an advantage and kill villagers than it is to be like, oh, I've got to get siege right away. But if you are going to go for a feudal push, and you've done damage, you've pushed them off the exposed resources, you've killed their whole army, whatever it is, you feel like you can end the game, or just even do a little damage with some rams, take out some production buildings, then you can go for rams. So you have to get the siege engineering first from the blacksmith, and then you're able to build rams with your infantry. Now, you really do have to watch rams when you're doing a ram push, and make sure that your opponent doesn't just pull all the villagers and kill them. Villagers do good torch damage against rams, and if you're pushing into their town center, they're obviously going to have villagers nearby. So it's really important to, keep your units within range of the rams and defend the rams. You can micro the rams back, like if you're attacking this. Let's pretend this keep is your opponent's town center or whatever, and you notice all these villagers are coming towards it. Just pull it back and get your, hopefully you'll have archers or something, and your archers can stand by the ram and snipe out the villagers. And if you're killing villagers, you are getting ahead, guys. So, like, even if your ram dies, if you kill 7 villagers while he's trying to kill the ram, while your opponent's trying to kill the ram, that's really good for you, right? Rams have actually become kind of the meta even later in the game, but we'll talk about that more later. The other kinds of siege that you will experience, we'll go through all of the siege units real quick. I'll briefly explain their roles in the game. So the Springled is an anti-siege, and it's actually very, very important to have these if your opponent is doing like a Trebuchet push or mangonel. If your opponent has mangonels and you have a bunch of archers, you're really going to need Springles to take out the mangonels. Mangonels are extremely, extremely effective against archers. They can be pretty effective against regular infantry as well. And they're just extremely strong against archers. They will take out clumps of archers like nobody's business. So let's go ahead and drop some archery ranges too. So yeah, that's the point of a mangonel. And if you are massing archers and you hit castle age, your opponent hits castle age, and they're going for mangonels, you're gonna want Springles to counter those. That's what you need. Trebuchets, very self-explanatory. They're long-range siege units. You can park them under a keep, park them next to your spearmen, and just start treading down your opponent's landmarks. and I will get into some mechanics with trebuchets in a minute that you'll find quite useful. Rams can actually be built out of siege workshops as well, once you hit Castle Age. Like I said, I think the meta right now is actually mass rams instead of going for trebuchets. So if you want to start destroying your opponent's buildings, you can just go for rams. Rams, one advantage that they have is I think they only take up 1 pop space. We'll see when this ram comes out. They just go to 24. Whereas a trebuchet takes up 3 population spaces, costs a lot more resources, including gold, and they can just be sniped really easily by cavalry if you're out of position. Whereas the rams, you can just make 5 or 6 of them, and even if even if your opponent like snipes 1 or 2 of them, it's just extremely overwhelming. They're gonna take 5 or 6 rams will take down keeps. They'll take down whatever so quick, and you can see, yeah, the ram only took up 1 pop space. So that's another advantage of rams, whereas this takes up 3 population space. So the next siege force we can talk about are the Imperial Age sieges, the bombards and the culverins. Bombards are really strong, but they're expensive, and they take up 3 population space. You can actually see it on the screen at the bottom. So it's got like the house symbol, and it shows how much population space these take up. So mangonels take up 3, trebuchets take up 3, culverins take up 3, bombards take up 3, springolds also take up 3. It's only rams that take up 1 population. So something to consider. Bombards are really strong, but it's also one of those things that's like you really could just make more rams instead, and you'll save on population space, etc., etc. But sometimes bombards can be really useful situationally, just to break through things really quickly or whatever, But yeah, like I said, the meta is really for rams for destroying buildings. And then finally we have the culverin, which is it's like a springold. It's anti-siege, but it's longer range than a springold. And these things are insane. If you're playing a civ that has culverins, I don't know all the civs that have culverins, but I believe Malians have them, and I think Abbasid gets access to them. And yeah, I don't have this memorized. Like some civs don't get access to them. Like English does not, Rus does not, Mongols do not, China does not. But anyways, culverins are the best anti-siege for late game. But yeah, this is all Imperial Age stuff. Your games probably won't be going to Imperial Age all the time. But let's dive into how to use each type of siege. So first I'll talk about something really useful you can do with the trebuchet, because I think a lot of people struggle with trebuchets in lower ranks. So maybe your opponent has a keep right here, and you're using your trebuchet to attack the keep, and you don't have vision on that keep, so the trebuchet rolls out into the middle until it can see the keep, and by the time you notice, it's getting sniped by your opponent's cavalry, and you're like, what can I do? Well, the better way in that situation, if you don't have a tower to get vision on the opponent's keep, that will help you a lot, but you don't have to do that. What you can do instead is, let's say there's a keep right here, and you know it's right here, but you don't have it on your, within vision of a tower. What you do is you click on your trebuchet, you press G for attack ground, and then you click on the keep. And now your trebuchet, it's not going to roll out like an idiot and die. It's just going to start attacking the keep. This is extremely, extremely useful. When I found that out, it really changed the way I use trebuchets. You can also ground fire with mangonels if you want to, but most of the time I wouldn't do that. I would just attack with them and click on the archers. But you can get specific ground attacks with your mangonels as well. And yeah, so when do you need these things? When do you need siege, right? That's another question. You might see, if you are able to attack into your opponent's base and they don't have keeps or anything, like I said, I really don't you just want to kill villagers and harass constantly. That's the best thing you can be doing. And you can build rams to end the game and kill their landmarks, and you really wouldn't need anything other than that. The rams. Even if you're in Castle Age or Imperial Age, you can eventually even get upgrades for the rams that make them better. You can get all kinds of upgrades for the siege here that we'll talk about in a second before the video's over. But yeah, as long as you're attacking and you know there's no keeps in your way or anything, you can just push onto their resources and attack their supposed resources, right? Like if you know your opponent's hurting for food, you might go for this deer. If you know that they're about to run out of gold in their base, you might camp on this gold. You know, you might attack their woodlines, whatever. Just attack their resources with your units, and yeah. Now, if your opponent has a giant mass of archers, that's when you would go for mangonels, and mangonels are going to be extremely effective. And when you start going for siege like springolds and mangonels and trebuchets, you do probably want to mix in spearmen to defend them from cavalry, because cavalry can always, like, even if there's a keep or something, defending your siege cavalry can just run in and snipe this if you don't have spearmen nearby to defend. So these kinds of things, guys, are going to just take practice and time. I'm not going to be able to explain it, and then you'll just be magically good at it, right? These kinds of things are going to take practice. So, yeah, that being said, let's see. I also would like to show you a little bit with archers and how to avoid mangonel fire with your archers. But yeah, so when do you want to go for trebuchets versus rams? I said it just depends. Like if your opponent has a lot of keeps defending their base, you might want to just go for a massive trebuchets and springolds and try to win the siege war. And that will give you the benefit of a trebuchet over rams is obviously that you can just sit under your keep and defend the trebuchet while it attacks rams. If you try to ram down a keep, you're going to have to send your army with it to defend the rams as well. And your army might take a lot of damage. So if you get 5 or 6 rams, you will just destroy the keep. So you really should play around with it yourself. And you should figure out what kind of style you like. Do you like to sit under the keep and defend your springolds and your trebuchets? Or do you want to just push into the base with like 6 rams and just take down your opponent's keep? These kinds of things are going to come with time, guys. There's not much I can do to tell you how to play, but I can explain the basics to you. So I'll show you real quick. If your opponent has a mangonel and you have a massive archers, immediately put them in this spread staggered formation to minimize the damage, and you can even dodge the shots. Like if your opponent is going to shoot right here, your archers are standing here, you pull back and dodge the shot. That's really the best you can do. You can even, if you have a lot more units, like if it's just the mangonel here, you can use the spread formation to even move in with your archers and kill the mangonel. I would not recommend trying that if you're not experienced, because you can really fuck that up. Now, if your opponent is going for a massive siege push, and you need to defend against it, springolds, you're going to need springolds, and you're going to need the springold advantage, and you're going to need to defend those springolds as well with units. So, you always want to put your springolds on their own hotkey, and it really is just going to come down to, like, who micros their springolds better and who has more springolds. If you're fighting your opponent and they have a bunch of siege as well, the first thing you should target with your springolds is their springolds. And then you go for their mangonels, their trebuchets, their wood barrels. So, yeah, that's pretty important. What else do we need to talk about here? I don't think there's much more to it, guys. If you have any more questions about siege, I didn't really get into culverins and bombards, because, yeah, I mean, culverin, I'll make a culverin. It's just a better springold. It has more range. So, yeah, you'd use it the same way. You want to use it to snipe your opponent's anti-siege first, and then go for the regular siege. These upgrades here are all quite good, honestly. Increased damage of trebuchets, that's great. Increased movement speed of siege engines, that's absolutely great. Reduce the reload time of mangonels, that's great if you have... But you only need these upgrades if you're using that specific siege weapon, obviously. Lightweight beams for rams, super good if you want to go for mass rams in Imperial Age. And roller shutter triggers is maybe the most important upgrade in certain situations, especially if you're playing a civ that doesn't have culverins. This is going to give you increased range on your springolds, and you will be able to fight culverins with those springolds. You really need to have a lot more. Like, you probably want to have 2 or 3 springolds for each culverin that your opponent has. So, yeah, anything else we need to talk about regarding siege? I don't really think so. Yeah, I mean, if you guys have any further questions about Siege, just go ahead and drop them in the comments. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what kind of guide you want to see next. Oh, before we end the video, we'll talk real quickly about unique siege units. China has Nest of Bees, and that is really, it's like a more effective mangonel, so think of it as really strong against archers and infantry. They're really, really good. There's like a gunpowder form of the mangonel, so China does not have access to the mangonel. And yeah, you're gonna want Springolds to deal with those. So Springolds against China. You really just want to kill China before Castle Age if you can, I'll be honest. But we're in early Castle Age before they start getting out tons of Nest of Bees. If your opponent gets out a massive army with a bunch of Nest of Bees and you take a big fight and you don't have Springolds, you're gonna probably lose. So just be aware of that. And then yeah, Mongols have a unique Trebuchet, but it's just like a bigger Trebuchet. So and they can only get that from their Imperial Age landmark through random chance. So really not going to come into play too much. The only other thing I think we should talk about is Mongols and Abbasid are actually able to build most of their siege on the field, including Springolds and Mangonels. So they can, Abbasid can just do it. They can just build their siege. It's right here in this menu. Instead of just having Rams, they'll also have Springolds and Mangonels. Mongols, you have to get an upgrade in the blacksmith. Your blacksmith needs to be parked on the Uvu, and you'll get the upgrade improved siege engineering, and you'll be able to build your siege in the field. So yeah, that's my guide for siege, guys. It's really not, it is a little complicated, I guess, but it really is just about. It's always about responding to your opponent, right? If your opponent doesn't have keeps in their base, you're not going to need a lot of siege. Maybe just a few rams to push their landmarks. So, but if your opponent has a lot of keeps and they're playing a slow, methodical approach where they slowly expand across the map with keeps, you're going to want a massive siege to deal with that, and you won't be able to kill them without it. So, yeah, the siege war can be really important, but it's also like one of those things, like if you really hate siege wars and you don't want to play with siege wars, you should just try going for more feudal aggression so that you don't get to this point in the game with the Springolds and the Culverins and the Mangonels and all that shit. Alright guys, once again, let me know if you have any questions, like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching. Y'all have a good one. As believe it or not, I forgot one more thing. I forgot the Great Bombard. The most important unique siege unit in the game. Just kidding, but yeah, the Ottomans have the Great Bombard in Imperial Age. If you make it to Imperial Age and you get to use Great Bombards with Ottomans, just congrats to you. That's really cool. I never make it to Imperial Age. I usually just, I mean, very occasionally, but I usually end the game or lose the game much earlier than that with Ottomans. But the Great Bombard is dope. It's awesome. I mean, and it's going to you'll be able to take out, unless your opponent has a big, massive Springolds or Culverins, you'll be able to take out your opponent's siege with the Great Bombard. Like I said, Culverins might beat it, but even still, like, the Great Bombard does okay against Culverins. And it will take down keeps extremely fast, and it also does big damage to infantry. So the Great Bombard is insane. It's just extremely expensive. It's hard to get to that point in the game with Ottomans sometimes, and yeah. But if you get some of those on the field, they can change the game. They will shred infantry and archers and destroy buildings like nobody's business. So yeah, just wanted to add that in. Thanks again.